Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Slauson and I am your student's math teacher for the school year. I'll be making one video for my Algebra 2 and my Geometry class to focus on the big things that are going to be going on in the classes, and they will be similar, so that is why I'm just making one video. So let's start out with just a little bit about myself. Okay, it does take a little bit sometimes for this to catch up, so I'm just going to wait. All right, so my name is Rebecca Slauson. I do go by Becky. You can see a little bit about myself. I have a freshman who I just dropped off at CSU last week, and now I have a freshman here at Eagle Crest. I am married, and I have 3 dogs, as you can see from the bottom left picture. This year, I am currently teaching Algebra 2 and Geometry. All right. Let's just get right into it because I don't want to make this video too long, and it always tends to go longer than I planned. So just a couple things. I want to talk about supplies, Schoology, and just the basic rules I want them to know. So as far as supplies go, I'd really like for your student to have a 3-ring binder for my classroom, pencils, and then if they have highlighters or pens and stuff, that's great, but not necessary. The 3-ring binder can be used with another class. I just want them to have a place where they can put their notes, where they can put their completed assignments, and then also maybe any extra handouts that they might happen to get or that we make that are really important to keep for the school year instead of everything just being in the backpack. All right. Schoology, let me quickly switch screens and I'm going to talk a little bit about Schoology. All right, so when you're in Schoology, one thing you'll want to be able to do is to always access your students' stuff. So hopefully, I think you probably figured that out if you were watching the video. If not, you do need, once you log into Schoology, I have a freshman here, and so what I do is I just use my freshman's Schoology login and password, but you also have your own. But what you'll need to do to go from one to another is go up to where your name is, hit the drop-down menu, and then you can access whichever student you want if you have several of them. So anyway, once you get there, you're going to see their courses, and I'm just going to jump into my Algebra 2 course. It will be the same setup for both. So let it go there. And once you're there, this is how you saw the back to school night video. Grading. I'm going to be making additional videos about grading, and those aren't quite done yet. We're still finalizing some details, getting the videos made. So those will be up, and I'll let you know through email, through PowerSchool, that those are ready. But if you are gone, or I'm sorry, if your student's gone, or you would like to know what they did, all you need to do is click on the week. So we're currently in week 2. So let me show you this. And again, this is for Geometry or Algebra 2. So this week in week 2, I am seeing the Algebra 2 students twice. If it is underlined, it's something that has a link to it. So what we did the other day is we did our practice. We checked our practice in groups, and then we started some new notes. So let's say your student wasn't there and they want to check to see how they did on the practice. They can just click on this link. And you won't see the whole thing, but what you are going to see is my answer key, and this is what they would have checked out in class. So Schoology is a great place if you want to see what they're doing, etc. If your student was absent, they can see what they missed. And if they left something at school, there are always handouts. So for instance, on Thursday, they're going to be getting a new practice. So this is something I will provide in class. However, if they left it at home or were they gone, they can just print it up at home. If they don't have a printer, they can just write their answers on a piece of paper. So there are ways to stay caught up if your student is gone. The other thing I will do is once we are finished with notes, your students can always check to see what the notes were. So here where it says continue with 1.2 notes, I can click on it. And then these are all of the completed notes for 1.2. And so since, a section might take a couple of class days, anytime they click on that, they'll be able to find the full completed things. So everything is there available. I do encourage your student to come in and touch base with me so that we can go over what they missed, but at least they have the resources. All right. Okay, let's go back to our little PowerPoint here. Rules, phone, and food. So food, we get hungry. If your student has me for 3rd hour, they have last lunch. So they get a little hungry. Just keep it neat, keep it clean, and keep it quiet as far as food goes. So clean up after themselves. I don't want it smelling, and I ask that they clean up. Phone, electronic devices, that's still always the big thing. I'm pretty easygoing, so my only request is that when we are working on notes, when we are in groups, that phones are put away, earbuds are out of the ears. When a student's doing a warm-up, when they're working on practice, and they want to check their Snapchat or listen to music, then I'm fine. So the first time I will ask students to put their phone away if they're not to have their phones out, and the second time I will be taking them, and then they can pick them up at the end of the day from the dean's office. All right? Okay, let's keep moving on. Let's talk about how students get extra help. They can visit me during my off periods. You can see them listed here. And they can also go to the Math Resource Center, which is in E104. That will be staffed by a math teacher from the beginning of the school day to the end of the school day. However, during third lunch, it's not open because that is when the math teachers have lunch and when we're going to eat. If your student can't make it to my off period or to the MRC, then after school is a great time. Before school, I tend to have meetings, and I'm bringing a 14-year-old here, so we're not always here at the set time. So if it has to be before school, I am going to ask that your student definitely reaches out to me to make sure that I'm actually available, or that I get here on time and that I don't have a meeting. So there are always ways for them to get help. If they're at home, we can always Zoom. We have to figure out how that's going to work, and so I just ask that your student communicates with me. All right, let's talk about this elephant in the room. This year, our principal, Mrs. Gwen Hanson-Beal, takes a lot to say that, is letting teachers kind of have a little more free reign with what we're going to be doing. So I, along with some of the other math teachers, are going to be using what's known as standards-based grading. Basically, what standard-based grading means is that practice is not going to count towards their grade. It doesn't mean the students shouldn't do practice, because practice makes perfect. It allows them to reflect on what they're learning. They're going to be pairing up in groups to go over their practice, and I'm still going to be collecting practice, looking at it, and entering whether they have completed it or not on PowerSchool, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Instead, your student's going to be made up of what they know, which is basically going to be their tests, their quizzes, but we're going to call them Showcase of Learnings, SLT. So instead of having big chapter tests every few days, maybe in 2 weeks, your student is going to take like a little mini quiz. And again, we're going to call them Showcases of Learning. And those Showcases of Learning are going to be comprised of these things that I call I can statements. All right? Every I can statement is going to be completed at least 3 times. So that means over a couple of their few quizzes, these Showcases of Learning targets, your student will see that I can statement up to 3 times. The third time is the one that we're going to make stick. Now, if they're not happy with that particular score, they can still always retake it until they are happy with it. All right? So the idea is, again, I want their grade to reflect what they know, not how hard of a worker they are, because not all students have the same schedule. Some have to work, some have to help at home, some have sports, sometimes they're not feeling well. So again, a grade should reflect what they know. The other nice thing about standards-based grading is you're going to know exactly what your student knows and does not know. So when you see a C on a test, you won't have to guess why they got a C. You're going to be able to see what specific thing it is that they need to work on to get that score up. All right? The other big change in standards-based grading, and I'm just looking at the very bottom of my screen, that last bullet, is that there are no numbers in our grades, and that's going to be a little weird. There's no points, no percentages. We're going to be using codes. And so more of this is going to be discussed in a separate video. I just want to let that be known. So if you're really curious as to what standards-based grading is, I highly suggest you watch this other video. We have not quite made it. We're working on it. It should be up by the end of the week or early next week. I'll email you through PowerSchool and let you know about that. Otherwise, if you trust what I'm doing, what Mrs. Lawson is doing, then I guess you don't need to watch the video. But I really do encourage you to do that so that you have a better understanding of that. All right? All right. That's about it as far as this is going to go in my just little intro video. So again, there will be a follow-up video in regards to all of this. One more thing, I'm going to highly suggest that you always check PowerSchool. Let me quickly jump to my PowerSchool page. Now, as a parent myself, I am always checking my students' grade. And when I first go into PowerSchool, what I see is the letter grade. For quite a while, until the end of the semester, you will only be seeing an S for satisfactory and a US for unsatisfactory. As long as your student has an S, they are eligible for sports. If they have a US, then depending on their other classes, they might not be eligible for their sport activities. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. An S, and you'll need to watch this grading video, is going to be a whole range of what we're used to as grades. It can be anywhere from an A+ all the way to a D-. So when you see an S, don't assume that your student's grade is safe, because standards-based grading is a work in progress. All right? So you won't know your student's final grade until the very end. So I highly encourage you, when you go into PowerSchool, don't look at just the S or the US, look at the details behind it. All right, there's going to be 3 categories that you will see in PowerSchool. You will see SLT. These red little tabs are what will affect your student's grade. These blue tabs are the I can statements. All of these, this is my Algebra 2 class, are what will be tested, and then when I look at their final scores of all these I can statements, they'll take each one 3 times. Once we've completed each I can statement 3 times, and this is the same for geometry, I will then give them a score for their SLT, their showcase of learning, their final overall, this is how I did on the unit. All right? And then from that score, I'll start to enter an S or a US. The other thing that you're going to see is, again, practice. Remember, practice will not be counting towards the grade. All right? However, I want you to see if it's done or not. So over here, you're going to notice it will be showing if it was collected, if your student did it. I won't be telling you if they did a good job on it. The students are going to be reflecting on that on their own. So that's a question you'll have to bring to your student. All right, that was a lot of information. Standards-based grading, a little overwhelming. I highly suggest that when the grading video is finished, that you check it out, and I will notify you through PowerSchool email that that video is up and running, and you will be able to access that video in Schoology just as you watch this. You will see it in your student's course in this folder that says grading, and you'll see access to those videos. If you have any questions, please feel to reach out to me. I'm going to show you real quick. Here's my email information. There is my phone number. You can always call, leave me a voicemail, and I will get back in touch with you. That's it. I hope you have a great evening. Thanks.